I'm not Japanese enough to be Japanese, and I'm not Brazilian enough to be Brazilian. You might be thinking, what is she talking about? Don't worry, this has some history behind it, so let's travel back to Japan in the 1920s. At that time, Japan was going through a major economic changes, and for many families, even eating was difficult. This is why my grandfather was forced to migrate to Brazil when he was only 12 years old. And 2 generations later, when I was 4 years old, my parents made a decision to move to Japan. And the big question that I still can't answer, and maybe I will never be able to answer is, was I moving to Japan or returning to Japan? Was I Japanese or was I Brazilian? What does it mean to be Japanese? What does it mean to be Brazilian? Is it the place I was born? What's written on my passport? Or maybe it's the culture. When you hear about the word culture, what comes to your mind first? A national flag, traditional food, customs, beliefs. Many of us learn to think as culture as something tied to a country or ethnicity, something fixed. But what if culture is something shaped by our lives? Something we carry as we move through the world? My life in Japan became a mix of customs, beliefs, and manners. At home, I spoke Portuguese and lived a Brazilian lifestyle. But at school, I learned Japanese ways of behaving, how to eat, how to speak, how to observe rules carefully so that I could adapt. And over time, I came to love Japanese food, like sushi, and the language and the manners that I still carry today. But in the beginning, it was not that simple. I thought the only difficulty was the language, but it was more than that. What was defined as caring or kind sometimes felt too much. I was raised hugging and kissing my parents, but here it was different. As a child, I didn't understand why, but other kids started to realize that I was different and I didn't fit. I began to see immigrant friends being hurt or treated differently. I remember a friend being laughed at because the food he brought to school was seen as dirty. And one day, a child told me I was different and hit me in the head with a metal water bottle. I cried, but what I remember most was sitting in the teacher rooms with my parents, and there I heard something that scared me more than being hit. The teacher said, "It's strange for a 6-year-old to discriminate. Probably their parents taught them." Their parents taught them? There was a time I realized that I would also have to protect myself from adults. As a child, I also played the role of the translator for my family. And there are some things that child translators never translate, like hearing adults speaking badly about your parents in a language that they don't understand. I didn't know what to do with the information, so I erased it by staying silent. But what about Brazilian community? I loved the food. I loved my friends. But even there, I didn't fully belong. Some people started telling me, "You had changed." They said, "Why don't you hug anymore? Why you're so quiet? Why do you seem so cold?" I laughed because I didn't know how to explain that silence was something I had learned to survive. In one place, I was too different, but in another, I was no longer the same. Little by little, I began to feel like I didn't belong anywhere. I couldn't explain who I was. I thought that my destiny was to be alone. My motivation disappeared. I pushed people away. I felt empty, as if I had no culture, no place, and no personality. When people experience discrimination or exclusion, pain doesn't stay quiet. Sometimes it came as anger, sometimes harsh word, but not because people want to hate, but because the pain needs a place to go. In my case, the anger appeared when I was at high school and I saw others suffering in the same way. After graduating from high school, I decided to go to Kyoto University of Foreign Studies to run away from this feeling. I chose to study English so that I could leave Japan and go to another country where I thought I would be accepted. But as the possibility of leaving Japan came closer, I felt sad. Is it the story of where I grew up? This feeling led me to write about people who grew up in Japan as immigrant. While writing my graduation thesis on immigrant education and how it affects their careers, I searched for inspiration. That's when I found IMILAB, an organization that supports immigrant youth in Japan, where I now work. As an immigrant, I thought I could help easily. I believed we share the same experiences, the same background, the same culture. For the first time, I felt like I had found my place. But that belief was the beginning of something breaking inside me. When I talked to the young people at IMILAB, I talked too much. I assumed their feelings. I finished their sentences. I was like a parrot who repeats the same message over and over. And eventually, I started to realize that they were not fully comfortable talking to me. That's because I was not listening. And I realized that listening hurt me. Listening hurt me because it meant facing the truth that me and the young people I was working with, we were not the same. We were not the same, even if we were immigrant in Japan, even if we speak the same language. Our culture was different. And I felt that I would never find a place where I fit perfectly. For a long time, I believed that being accepted meant being the same as others. I thought that to belong, I had to find people who were like me. But when they weren't, I felt rejected. Or worse, I felt like something was wrong. So I adapted. I changed parts of what I wanted, parts of who I was, because I thought that was the price of coexistence. And when others didn't adapt to their situation the way I did, I judged them. Why don't they try harder? Why are they like us? How many parts of yourselves have you hidden just to belong? I've been doing that my whole life. And slowly I realized something uncomfortable. The problem wasn't being different. The problem was believing that differences were not okay. The solution wasn't separation. I wasn't lonely because I couldn't belong to one culture. I was lonely because I was trying to fit myself into one. But when I stopped doing that, when I allowed myself and others to be different, my heart softened. I understood that everyone carried their own history, their own beliefs, and that is the beauty of being human. That is the culture of each person. Culture is not only something we inherit, but something we live. I believe culture is shaped by our history, by what we are allowed to be, and how we learn to survive the world. It's impossible to define a human being with a label. And this is not only about immigrant. This is about anyone who has ever felt that society has a standard version and they don't fit. Differences is not an exception. It is the reality of being human. What I learned from IMILAB is the importance of removing labels, raising voices, and truly listening through dialogue. Standing up for what we believe is important, but without closing our ears to others and without losing ourselves. If you find yourself trying to change who you are just to belong, please remember that differences is okay. Being different is okay. And this is one of the most precious things you carry. And if someone has a different culture from yours, it's natural. Sameness is not the solution. Thank you.